Come and reminisce with us. This is 90s Till Infinity.
It's Gav here from the guy who brought you BRL. 90s Till Infinity walks you down the road of the best decade ever, the 90s. Catch 90s Till Infinity on Mixcloud or a radio station near you, or find us at 90s Till Show on Facebook and Instagram.
Coastal Feel. 90s Till Infinity. Keeping it retro. Reminisce with us.
Blood stains the ground. BRL, son.
Peace, this is Nelson Dialect. You're tuned in to Beats, Rhymes and Live.
This is ISB. You're listening to BRL.
Yo, this is Race. You're listening to BRL.
What up? It's 360.
Yeah, this is Nick Loopy from One Day Spit Syndicate.
I'm Seth Century. You're on Beats, Rhymes and Life, and I endorse this product.
Peace, family. This is El Fresh the Lion on Beats, Rhymes and Life. Stay tuned. This is where hip-hop lives.
It is Beats, Rhymes, and Life. And now we got two gentlemen joining us on the Zoom here. And quite simply, it's been quite a while since we've had an Oz hip-hop documentary. Had a few sort of in the 2000s and that kind of deal. I don't know if it's been more than 10 years since we've had one, but releasing soon to a select cinema near you will be Burn Gently. And it is a labor of love from Sensible Antixx and Enfer Jones. And now, gentlemen, you are joining us to chat about this project on the program. So how are you going?
Hello. We're good. Long time coming.
Yeah. From, what little we've seen so far, it's it's a labor of love, and you said it's 5 years in the works. That to me is a labor of love right there. So what made you take this angle on Australian hip-hop?
Oh man, it's weird to think that it's actually been that long. And for jump in whenever you need to, man. When we originally started this film as an idea in the back of a pub, like all good Australian stories. Mm-hmm. And we had a concept that we were going to tell the story of Enfer Jones's life. Enfer has, we'd been working together for quite a few years, and every time we hung out, he'd tell us some crazy, ridiculous story about hanging out with, will.i.am from Black Eyed Peas, or gosh, I can't even think of them all now. And growing up with Heath Ledger, all kinds of, just this amazing life that Enfer had led. And so we thought we should make a film about this. And Enfer, obviously being from 1200s, had access to the industry that we had never really considered the depth or the breadth of how far and wide that reach actually had in Australian hip hop. So when we started filming the documentary, we started speaking to all kinds of just amazing people that have been involved in Australian hip hop for quite some time. So, I remember speaking to Sensible J from House of Beige and Remy quite early on. And we realized, especially speaking to Jay, actually, and I think it was Jay that was like, yo, are you really going to make a film about your own life?
Well, hang on. I wasn't planning to make a film about my life. Antixx was interested in making a film about my life. And I was like, yeah, maybe. Yeah. And as we spoke, it became evident that I wasn't really ready for that, but I was really interested in talking about people I'd had the pleasure of working with and being around over the years. And at the time, I'd also been working on an article called Rhyme Time. And just as becoming a journalist in a way, it just made sense to take that journalism further. And I was able to provide access through relationships and friendships. And Ant had all the drive and fortitude to get up and go. Even to this point, as we come close to the end, it's really Ant's drive that's getting us there. And I think as a whole team, getting Johnny involved, having Tino on the team to make sure we're all keeping things working, it's just been a really cool approach and opportunity to talk with artists more about Australia industry, the landscape through the lens of hip hop versus, in 1982 this happened. It's a bit more of a broad approach, I think.
And what it seems like, once again, I haven't seen the film yet. I think most people haven't seen the film yet, time of recording, but it seems like you guys have also taken in the aspect of the last 10 years, which is why I think this documentary is well overdue, because we've had a diversification in the genre. Like it's changed in quite a significant way. For good, for bad, depending on what your opinions are. But it seems like it's a bit more of a modern take as opposed to this was the graph scene in Melbourne and Death Wish cars from Sydney and all that kind of thing. And obese happened, and that's where we are.
You need a 10-part series, 20-part series for that. I mean, the history of hip hop in Australia is so deep. Yeah. People think it's not, but it's so deep. You'd need so many hours to tell that story. So much funding, finance, opportunity. It's just we're here to tell a story.
Yeah,
not every
Netflix.
Story.
Netflix, get onto it.
But also,
they did one for the US.
This is true. This is true. Don't think I haven't been chasing them. Netflix, if you're listening, hit me up. No, but when we started putting this thing together as well, even from a perspective of format, it wasn't necessarily saying, all right, let's talk about 2010 to 2023. It wasn't, because originally that was our idea. It was like, let's talk about day one Australian hip hop to today. And exactly like Empha said, we realized pretty quickly that is not consumable in a 2-hour film, So we really, are we allowed to swear on? Should I be swearing? Can I not swear? I'm just going to make sure. I should have asked that first.
I'd prefer. Look, we can do a podcast version. We can do the radio version.
It's all right. Probably shouldn't. Anyway, so a lot of the things that people were telling us, for example, like we decided to make it episodic. The film itself is in 2 episodes. And when we started to speak to like television, for example, they were like, you can't do that. You need 1 feature length. And it was like, well, we don't want to do that. That's not the way that we wanted to do the film. And so there was that then forced us to make decisions on what would and wouldn't be included in our narrative of Australian hip hop. So, for example, we don't really cover the graffiti scene, and that might piss some people off.
Yeah, it's more of an MC's approach than the dominant MC.
Exactly, and it's like that's not to say that we don't love the graph scene and we don't back the graph scene. We love everything about it. It was just like that wasn't part of our narrative. Whereas the MCing, that absolutely was. So episode 1 is very much establishing the background of Australian hip hop. From I'm going to say mid 80s, Empha. With your Death Wish cast and Sound Unlimited. And those sorts of cats. And then episode 2 is more of a narrative on the social constructs of the Australian music industry and where hip hop sits in that. And just trying to explore that.
Now that brings up an interesting point. Now I wonder if there'll be a documentary down the road, because this is a total podcast question, not for the radio show. But I looked at the numbers on the hottest 100 because, and for you may know that I posted about you guys being, the first off the rank 20 years ago for Karma, number 4 in the hottest 100. Insane achievement, especially for the time. And then we've had that sort of rise over the journey. You can kind of, and I think it's kind of where the genre is in the public eye commercially at the moment. You saw it sort of peak at about 2011, 2010, something like that. Most tracks in the countdown, and it's slowly gone down, had a bit of a peak in 14, and now it's just sort of drifted off once again. Now, that being said, do you see the scene, in your eyes, let's say, Enfa, do you see it as being in a different place than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
I mean, it's constantly changing. I think, and it's a hard one to discuss because it's within the scene, it's been so discussed over and over about what should be happening, what shouldn't be happening, what is the art form. some folks like, I don't care about that. I just want this. I want, you know, so
Yes.
I think it totally just depends on whether music's connecting with large mass majorities. I mean, online airplay and certain trafficking can mean one thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's connecting with where you live.
Yes.
But it might be connecting elsewhere. Or it looks like it's doing something in a chart, but the reality is the only person selling records physical is some group who happen to have a distributor who get their music into Target, and their 200 sales is charting versus someone who's independently selling 1,000 vinyl at a record shop that isn't registered. So, I mean, it depends how you're looking at it. But as far as like that level of reach and radio, at the end of the day, yeah, it's about connecting with the people. It also depends on what opportunities artists are getting, whether certain stations will play them and support them or not. You know, it has a lot of that's out of the hands of the artist.
Oh, absolutely.
And that sucks.
It does, and that's probably why maybe that kind of thing. I use that as an example, but I come from radio, so I'm like, well, this should mean something. And then with the thought, of course, you know, you have Spotify numbers, and as you said, independent music sales, and people just sell off their own back as well. Like people don't even bother putting in stores at all anymore as well. So. There is that.
There's a lot involved. But I think at the end of the day, the goal of an MC is to connect with the heartbeat of the city they live in, or the land they live in, and with people. And if that happens, and same with singer-songwriters, if that happens, songs can do well, so long as everything else lines up and people get the chance to hear you. But I think that's the goal, and, you know, that's all we can hope for.
Now,
yeah, I think also back to your like original question as well. Sorry to cut in there.
No,
like
all good.
With your Triple J Hottest 100 as well. Like, I don't think that anyone would ever argue Triple J's willingness and huge effort in bringing Australian hip hop to the forefront of Australian music, and certainly bridging it towards a mainstream. You know, there are a lot of artists that, you know, you look at the Hoods that when they came out in the late 90s, they were like independent as hell, and now, you know, they're still getting played on Triple J 20 years later. Like, you can't argue that Triple J has a huge influence and commitment to Australian music. No one's arguing that. But I think that now in current day as well, it's sort of like, well, what does the Hottest 100 actually really mean to an artist? Like, that's something you have to consider yourself. If you look at artists like 1-4, for example, or Cursor, or you know, those artists, they couldn't care less about the Hottest 100. And so, like, that's not to discredit Triple J. That's you know, a decision that the artist has made, and that's something that every artist should consider in how they're releasing music.
Yeah, it might not be an accurate reflection of where the genre is. They might just be out of touch. We as radio, like, I know I'm definitely out of touch with the modern scene and the style. There's so many things that I'll see on AU Dollars. Shouts to AU Dollars, by the way. Good blokes over there. And they play a lot of stuff which just like, it's not for me. It's not my generation. I'm a grown ass man. I don't enjoy that style. Sorry, everyone. But
fair enough.
So let's get back to the film itself once again. So distribution wise, we've got a couple of screenings coming up in a couple of different cities. So we've got Melbourne. You're also having a supporting gig for that as well, featuring my mate Strictly DT. Shouts to DT. And also you guys are going to Sydney. Are you sort of slowly rolling out screenings across the country?
It's the goal.
We are. We're kind of treating it like a tour, almost like a band going on tour in a way. The entire film has been grant funded. We were successful in a number of grants over the past 5-6 years. And as such, we're committed to screening across the country, because, you know, that's what grants are about. And also that was our intention with the film in the first place, was access. So we've announced Melbourne, Sydney and Newcastle. We're going to be announcing Brisbane, Canberra, Adelaide. We're going to do some regional shows in Victoria. We're going to try really hard to get over to WA. We don't want to leave those guys out. Have I missed anywhere?
Come back and visit, mate.
We'd love to get up to Darwin too, but I'm not sure if we can get that far. It's a long flight. I love coming to Perth. It's a long way and super expensive at the moment.
It's super expensive to get over there, you know.
Oh, trust me, there's no, apart from maybe you guys doing what you do, I have absolutely no reason to fly to the East Coast at all at the moment. I remember I was looking at some flights for the Community Radio Awards last year, and it was cheapest possible red-eye flights, whatever. It was still nearly $2,000 to fly to Cairns. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
When we interviewed Draft from WA,
yes,
and he came back and was like, "Yeah, I'll do the interview." And then when we started talking about Zoom, I was like, "Oh man, I almost thought I had a trip over there."
No, it's great.
It was so good.
It's a long way. And from of course being around here, you know exactly how isolated we really are over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, it's a good place to be isolated.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of creativity comes out of it.
Absolutely. So these screenings, they'll be rolling out across the country. From there, is there going to be sort of a mass release? Is it going to be put on a streaming service perhaps? Have you been in discussion with that? Of course, let's not ruin any NDAs or anything like that, but has there been that kind of discussion?
Yeah, we do have an agreement in place. Hopefully, I mean, we're in final steps of discussions with getting a distributor on board for. We'd really like to have it televised. We'd really like to put it on streaming services eventually. We want it to be. I mean, that's what hip hop is, right? It's documenting history. So we'd really like it to be accessible to everyone on streaming platforms, and we have had people interested. So we're trying really hard to get that over the line now.
Excellent. So let's get the plugs in. The upcoming screenings are where, gentlemen?
All right. So Cinema Nova, March 23. We've got, which is in Melbourne, Naarm, by the way. We've got March 30 at Dendy Cinema in Sydney. And then we've got Civic Theatre in Newcastle on March 31st. They're the three that we have left at the moment, and we'll hopefully be announcing another one next week.
Indeed. So more to come. Stay tuned for the details. And is there a socials or anything they can follow you on?
Just Burn Gently. All one word on Instagram, 2 words on Facebook.
Burn Gently. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the film. If you guys do get over there, I'll definitely make an appearance and go and see this movie.
Would love that.
Fantastic.
Indeed. Well, you know what? We'll play some 1200 techniques. We'll play some 1200 techniques for the radio listeners right now. I don't
6056 represent
100%. At 2:05, by the way, 025, man. Craigie!
Dropping EDM, hip hop, and a bunch of best beats programs around. If you want bangers, you'll be in the right place with Tune One. Tune1.com.au. That's tune1.com.au. Tune One, proud show sponsor.